Hi. You'll notice I've gotten a little behind on the videos. I apologize for that. In the past week, life simply became life, and I kind of got behind on everything. So what I'm going to try to do here is to cover 3 lessons in a single video. These are lessons for the weeks of September 24th, which hopefully you just finished, October 7th, and October 14th. I can do this because these 3 weeks kind of address a single topic. In these 3 weeks, I try to convey to you what evaluation is, what the methods and theories are that are found in evaluation. There is one big central issue that arises continually in thinking about evaluation or just about any other thing that people do to try to understand how other human beings behave. This is the dimension that has the quantitative, deductive, scientific stuff at one end, and the qualitative, inductive, humanist, person-oriented perspective at the other. This dimension is one that is debated in just about everything that I've ever looked at that tries to explain anything about people. And you'll run into it over and over and over. It carries with it a number of other debates that arise repeatedly in the social sciences. The quantitative-qualitative argument, the outsider-insider or etic-emic perspective, the knowability of things, what can be known and what cannot be known, and does that matter? This debate, it's actually a continuum that goes from one end to the other, and I found that I spent most of my time vibrating somewhere near the middle of this. Although I, because of my evaluation and my scientific background, have tended to move closer to the other end than many anthropologists, to the scientific end, than many anthropologists do. And you probably are not surprised to hear that. But you need to be a little bit eclectic in choosing the ways of approaching an evaluation that are most suitable to the problem that you're addressing. Last week, the week of September 24th, I exposed you to the evaluators who are over on the solidly on the scientific end of the continuum. These are people who believe that the most important thing about evaluation is quantitative measurement and hypothesis testing using quantitative methods. These are often experimental and quasi-experimental evaluations. In both kinds of evaluations, you allot things, people, programs, communities, to 2 groups, an experimental group and a control group. You provide the experimental group with some kind of a treatment. You let the treatment run for a while, and then you measure an outcome in both the experimental and control groups, and you estimate the effect of the treatment by comparison of those 2. Conceptually, it's quite a simple design. Logistically, experimental evaluations have a number of risks. They're costly and they take a long time. They began in evaluation. They are, however, the very beginning of evaluation. Actually, they began in the 1930s when evaluation was first born as the discipline that measured the effects of particularly educational innovations by looking at student performance before and after an intervention and doing the experimental thing. They were quite effective at this. I mean, experimental evaluations and quasi-experimental evaluations to a lesser extent are very convincing. They provide you with levels of significance and a solid quantitative estimate of effects. And people like this. Maybe because we were all scared by math in elementary school, we tend to be very convinced by numbers. And this is, I've given you a couple of the pioneers in this kind of evaluation to familiarize you with what it looks like in its purest form. Let me see. This is followed on October 1st. We'll do real work, and during the week of October 7th. I provide you with exposure to what I call anthropologically relevant approaches to evaluation. These are approaches that are somewhere between the extremes. Usually they're mixed method approaches in which quantitative and qualitative methods are combined to provide a thicker, more all-around perspective of what's going on with an intervention. These experiments, these kinds of evaluations, these kinds of evaluations began to become better and better developed, beginning in the middle 60s with the introduction of the War on Poverty. The War on Poverty developed many, many programs to provide improvements to the life of poor people. And one of the things that agencies who were implementing these programs wanted to know was which ones were effective and which ones were not. And to do this, to understand this in the case of these programs, they needed to know something about process, about how the programs were implemented, how people received them, and how well they worked. To do this, you really need a more observational approach. You need to look at what happens during the course of program implementation. Experimental evaluations do not do this. So there was a new focus on users, on how to build evaluations that were useful to those who commissioned them. Not surprisingly, one of the best exemplars of this is something called utilization-focused evaluation, developed by Michael Quinn Patton, but elaborated on and used by many, many other people. Utilization-focused evaluations prioritize the needs of users in choosing evaluation questions and developing evaluation methods. In any utilization-focused evaluation, you talk to potential users, to people who will be affected by the evaluation, called stakeholders, at the beginning of the evaluation, and then you just design the evaluation, the question, the methodology, to provide the information that users need. This kind of evaluation is very popular with agencies, and it's an excellent approach for maintaining focus on a single dimension of a program when you're evaluating it. Some of you might want to try utilization-focused approaches in the evaluations that you do for your projects. So to do this, you ask your client what kinds of results would be the best for them, what could they use, and you develop your evaluation accordingly. There are two other categories that fall in this branch of evaluation, both of which are important to us. One of them is case study evaluation, and the other is rapid assessment. Case study evaluations are evaluations which bring every possible source of evidence to answering a question about a well-defined exemplar or instance of something. Case study evaluations tend to be mixed method. One of the first steps in a case study is to go out and figure out what kinds of data are available that will throw light on the problem that you're addressing, that you're investigating. probably maybe 60% of the evaluations I ever did were case study evaluations, because it's what people tend to want when they bring in the ethnographers. The ability of ethnography to provide deep, rich information, and to be fleshed out with historical records and surveys and statistical findings and economics, makes them very useful in cementing together case study evaluations. Finally, there's rapid assessment. Rapid assessments are evaluations in which are designed to be done within a short period of time, and to produce results that are as rigorous as they possibly can be given the time constraints. Rapid assessment is not just doing evaluation fast. It has a particular method and a particular way of pulling it together in a quick period of time. So I've given you a reading on rapid assessment. It's important to you because much of the work that anthropologists do, or at least anthropologists tend to be called into rapid assessments. They're very often done with international development programs, and for that reason, it's very good for you to be familiar with them if that's what you hope to do. Rapid assessment methodologies may also help you in developing your evaluation for this course, because there's nothing that's really more rapid assessment than doing an evaluation in a few weeks. Finally, in the week of October 14th, I brought you something which I call ethnographic approaches to evaluation. These weren't all developed by ethnographers, but they tend to prioritize ethnographic investigation into the experience of program administrators, program implementers, and clients in evaluating the effectiveness of a program. There are quite a number of these. I've focused on one method because it is so typically anthropological, and because it's quite controversial with an evaluation. David Federman is an anthropologist, and he's a former president of the American Evaluation Association. So a lot of people feel that what Federman does is what anthropologist evaluators do. Federman came up with the idea of empowerment evaluation. He believes that the goal of evaluation is to support people in communities, or I guess communities themselves, in evaluating their conditions and developing solutions of their own problems, and then going on to implement them. In this way, the people in communities become sort of masters of their own fate. They have a hand in doing what needs to be done to improve their lives around specific issues. Empowerment evaluation is quite controversial within evaluation. Many people, especially those more over on the quantitative side of things, question whether empowerment evaluation can in fact be evaluation. It's a good question, and one that I think deserves some thought. So I've given you some readings from Federman. By the end of this series of modules or lessons, I hope that you will have had a fairly broad but substantive exposure to what comprises evaluation. As you go on in your career, should you become an evaluator, you will read more deeply in all of these areas. What I have hoped to do here is to give you enough exposure so that when you have to get smart about your own area of evaluation, you at least have some place to start. So that's it for evaluation, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye. Damn it.